Hey guys, tonight we're stepping into a time long past, where muddy boots and flickering torches mark the rhythm of daily life. We're spending a full day, not as a noble, not as a knight, but as the sleepy soot-covered soul who works at a bustling medieval inn. That's right, you'll be sweeping floors, dodging goats, and wrangling guests who may or may not pay their bill. Honestly, you probably wouldn't survive 5 minutes there without questioning your life choices. But don't worry, there's no rush. You've got all night to find out. Before we begin tonight's journey through history, I have a small favor to ask. If you're enjoying this peaceful corner of the past, please consider giving the video a like or subscribing to the channel so you won't miss any of our upcoming nighttime adventures. It truly helps this little channel grow, and it means so much to me. If you're still awake enough to type a few words, I'd love to know where in the world you're listening from, and what time it is where you are. I find it so heartwarming to see history gently unfolding across time zones, quietly shared together. I sincerely hope this historical story is gentle enough to ease you into sleep, but there's always a small risk. It might be too interesting. And if you do happen to stay awake through the whole thing, at least you'll walk away with a bit of new knowledge. And if that's what keeps you up tonight, well, I'd say that's worth it. Now, dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum. And let's ease into tonight's journey together. You stir before the sun has even dared to rise. It's cold. Your breath forms small clouds above your face. And your blanket, an old woolen thing that smells faintly of mutton, is curled around your knees in a knot. The straw mattress beneath you creaks as you shift, sending a few dry bits poking through your linen shirt. You sit up in the loft, blinking blearily through the smoke-stained rafters. Down below, the dim outline of the main hall is just starting to stir. One of the chickens someone forgot to pen last night clucks lazily from the corner near the hearth. Somewhere nearby, a spoon clatters to the floor. You stretch your arms, already sore from yesterday's chores. Your legs ache, too. Not from battle, no. That would be far too glamorous, but from hauling buckets of ale, scrubbing soot off stone, and chopping firewood that refused to split evenly. You glance out the crooked little window next to your bed. The sky is a moody blue, the color of cold tin. Somewhere far off, a cock crows. It's not your inn's rooster, though. Yours has been missing since old Tom from room 6 borrowed it last week for what he called a stew experiment. The feathers on the doormat told the rest of that story. You pull on your breeches, still damp from yesterday's laundry, and lace up your boots. One of them has a hole in the toe, and you briefly consider patching it with some wax. But then you remember you've already used the wax to fix a broken candlestick holder. Priorities? Down the ladder you go, every rung creaking like a warning. The smell of stale beer, cabbage soup, and wood smoke hits you square in the face, comforting in a strange way. It's the scent of survival. Your inn is alive again. In the kitchen, the fire is already lit. Marna, the cook, is hunched over the hearth, poking at yesterday's coals like they owe her money. Her hair is wrapped in a scarf that's seen better centuries, and her sleeves are rolled up to her elbows, revealing strong, flour-dusted arms. "You're late," she grunts, without turning around. She always says that. No matter when you arrive, you nod, rubbing your eyes, and shuffle toward the back door to fetch water. The pump is stiff, the metal freezing against your palms, but you fill the bucket with practiced rhythm. The handle squeaks just once before settling into its usual protest. Song. Back inside, the inn is still sleepy. Chairs are tipped onto tables, and a long smear of what you suspect is gravy trails from the door to the fireplace. A lone tankard sits abandoned near the hearth, its contents now a thick, suspiciously wobbly sludge. You grab the broom, its bristles uneven from a guest's child pretending it was a horse last week, and begin your morning dance. Sweep, step, sweep, sidestep. A silver button rolls out from beneath the bench. You pocket it without thinking. You'll either use it to fix your coat or trade it to the candlemaker's apprentice for another candle stub. The door creaks open just as you finish the main floor. In walks Fergus, the stable master, bundled in layers of wool and smelling faintly of wet hay. "Rooster's still gone," he says helpfully, wiping his nose with a sleeve. You nod again. Communication this early is more gesture than word. Marna slams a pan down. "Tell that bird thief to pay his tab, or I'll stew him next." You don't know whether she means it, and frankly, you don't want to. You glance toward the hearth. A buzzard, yes, an actual buzzard, has somehow wandered in and is eyeing the ash bin with professional interest. "Oh no, not again," you mutter. The last time the buzzard visited, it stole a half loaf of bread, pecked at a guest's boot, and knocked over the pot of mutton stew with its wingspan. And somehow, nobody questioned it. You grab a broom and begin to shuffle toward the bird with slow, deliberate steps. It turns its head sideways, unbothered. You wave the broom gently. It flaps its wings and hops onto the back of a chair. Then the windowsill. Then out the window again, dropping a small gray feather in its wake. Victory. You pluck the feather from the ground and place it behind your ear. Why not? It's shaping up to be one of those days. Back in the kitchen, Marna is muttering about needing more onions. You grab the ledger and squint at the list of dwindling supplies. Butter, low. Ale, dangerously low. Candles, missing, or possibly eaten by mice. Your first thought is to go check the pantry. Your second is to crawl back into bed. Your third is interrupted by the heavy thud of someone knocking at the front door. You glance at the sky through the window. It's still blue-gray, but just starting to warm. A single ray of sun slips past the clouds and paints a golden streak across the floorboards. You sigh, square your shoulders, and move toward the door, ready to greet whatever madness the day has in store. Because at this inn, even the mornings need a mop and a sense of humor. You swing the heavy wooden door open, expecting, well, anything. A tax collector, a lost friar, a nobleman in disguise. What you get is worse. It's the cook's nemesis, the buzzard's slightly larger cousin. No, wait, it's just a merchant caravan. Dusty, loud, and already shouting before you can rub the sleep from your eyes. 3 wagons creaking under sacks of salt, rolls of cloth, and a suspicious number of iron pans rumble into the courtyard like they own the place. Horses snort and stomp as stable hands scramble. The caravan leader, a squat man with a braided beard and voice like a cracked bell, demands beer, stew, and someone to warm his bathwater. You blink. It's not even sunrise. You give a polite grunt and wave them inside, silently praying there's still enough ale to placate their thirst. As the drivers unload crates, children spill out from under tarps, rubbing their eyes and squealing at the promise of breakfast. Marna's already standing in the doorway with a ladle in one hand and a scowl so fierce it could curdle milk. "I hope they brought coin this time," she mutters. "Last time, they paid me in pickled turnips and some sort of cursed fiddle." You remember that fiddle. It played itself for 3 nights and refused to stop unless wrapped in a goose feather blanket. It's still locked in the cellar. The merchants file into the main room like smoke through a chimney. You catch bits of conversation. Grain prices, moldy cheeses, some scandal involving a broken spinning wheel and an alchemist's apprentice. No one seems particularly scandalized. You grab a stack of mismatched mugs and begin pouring from the barrel. The ale is lukewarm and slightly sour, but after a long journey, no one complains. Except for one man in a hat far too fine for his boots. He sniffs, makes a face, and mutters something about the state of civilization. You smile politely and hand him a mug with a suspicious chip. Meanwhile, the merchant's mule has wandered into the herb garden. It's now chewing with great enthusiasm on Marna's last surviving sprigs of thyme. You consider chasing it off, but the mule looks tired, and honestly, you kind of relate. Back inside, the inn has exploded into noise. Boots thud, children shriek, someone's playing a jaw harp with a degree of talent that should be illegal before breakfast. One of the drivers claims his bed is haunted because he heard whispering last night. You assure him it was probably just the chimney, or the dog, or possibly the ghost of Lady Ardith, who likes to sing lullabies from the rafters. Historians still argue whether she ever existed, you add with a shrug. Pouring more ale. Marna yells for you from the kitchen. You duck behind the bar and sneak through the side door. "Chop these," she orders, shoving a basket of onions at you. "And if you cry, I'll make you mop with your sleeves." You begin slicing. The air fills with a sharp, tear-inducing sting that curls into your sinuses. You've cried over less, like the time a bard composed a song about your boots and called it "The Tragedy of Soggy Leather." By the time you're halfway through the basket, your eyes are watering, and your fingers smell like something between a feast and a funeral. Behind you, Marna stirs a cauldron the size of a child's bathtub, muttering about parsley that's more twig than leaf. You hear clattering from the main hall. Someone's knocked over a stool. Again. You leave Marna to her herb-related grievances and step back into the chaos. At least 2 merchants are now arguing about who gets the corner table. The shorter one insists he was there first. The taller one insists the stool was facing him. Therefore, it's legally his. A third merchant has taken advantage of the argument to sit down and start eating from both of their plates. You smooth things over by declaring the stool cursed and moving all 3 to a different table. It works, mostly because someone drops a jug of cider and everyone rushes over to lap it off the floor. The caravan leader waves you over with a grim look. "I've got a problem," he says, setting down his tankard. "2 of my guards are missing. They were supposed to ride ahead, check the bridge near Black Hollow. They never came back." You raise an eyebrow. "Maybe the bridge is just boring." He leans in. "Or maybe it's haunted." You nod solemnly, because everything is haunted if you squint hard enough in this line of work. Still, you promise to ask the woodsman next time he passes through. He always seems to know what the local trees are whispering. Outside, the sun is finally up, spilling golden light over the cracked cobbles of the courtyard. The mule has moved on to a flower box. The children are playing some game involving shouting, mud, and what looks like a dried eel. You don't ask. You head to the well for more water and pass by the laundry lines, now full of flapping tunics and half-dry stockings. A sock slaps you in the face. You accept it as a blessing. As you hoist the bucket, your arms burning, you think about breakfast. Not for the guests, no. They're already stuffing themselves with crusty bread and oily sausages. But for yourself, perhaps there's a leftover heel of cheese, or that apple with only 1 bruise. You bring the water in and place the bucket near the hearth. A child immediately uses it to wash his toy knight. You say nothing. At least he asked this time. Marna tosses you a heel of bread and a wink. Eat fast. The tinker just arrived. You glance out the window. Sure enough, a skinny man with 30 pots tied to his back is hobbling toward the door. The last time he visited, 3 pots exploded. 1 guest eloped with him, and he convinced Fergus the moon was hollow. It's going to be a long morning. But for now, you sit by the fire, chewing your bread, watching the dust float in the sunlight. The inn may be loud, the chores never ending, and the ghosts occasionally opinionated, but for one quiet moment, with warm air on your face and no one shouting your name, you let yourself breathe. You don't get to breathe for long. The scullery door bangs open with the kind of drama usually reserved for royal proclamations or kitchen fires. In stomps Anwin, the youngest of the staff and the most skilled at both peeling turnips and spreading rumors. Her apron is already stained, and her hair's tied back in a knot that somehow makes her look more mischievous than usual. She drops a dripping mop with a thud and jabs a thumb toward the back hallway. "You'll want to hear this," she says, wide-eyed and clearly delighted. "The knight in room 3, the one with the scar and the suspicious boots, word is, he's not a knight at all." You raise an eyebrow, biting the crust of your bread. "Swear it," she adds. "I overheard him talking to his sword, like full conversation, called it Margaret." You chew slowly. This is not the first guest to speak to inanimate objects at the inn. Last season, a widow from Wessex spent a week arguing with her bonnet about the weather. The bonnet won every time. Still, you make a mental note. Room 3, keep an eye on the boots and listen for sword whispers. Anwin grabs a rag and starts polishing tankards, still chattering. And you know the merchant with the enormous mustache? Apparently he smuggles exotic birds in from the east. One escaped and flew straight into Lady Ardith's portrait. Now, the eyes don't line up. You glance toward the wall. The portrait in question does look a little more suspicious than usual, but that could just be the candlelight. You're about to return to mopping when a shout echoes from the stables. Not the "I dropped something" kind of shout. The "something just kicked me in the dignity" kind. You and Anwin exchange a look, then head outside. Fergus is standing there, clutching his hip and scowling at a very smug-looking donkey. "It bit me," he growls. You try not to laugh. The donkey huffs and returns to its pile of hay as if biting the stablemaster is just another Tuesday task. You help Fergus hobble to a bench and hand him a damp cloth. He waves you off and begins muttering threats involving stew pots and revenge. You leave him to it. Back inside, Anwin has abandoned her mop to chase a chicken that somehow made its way up the stairs. You suspect it's the same one that slept by the hearth last night. You also suspect it now thinks it's a guest. You sigh and grab the mop. The floor is sticky with what might be cider, or possibly the mysterious gravy from the night before. You splash a bit of lavender vinegar into the water bucket. Marna swears it kills both germs and bad moods, and begins scrubbing. The rhythm is familiar. Dip, mop, ring, repeat. As you work, bits of conversation float to you from nearby tables. And then he tried to sell me a map of the moon. Wore 3 wigs stacked on top of each other. For height, she said. Swears he saw a bear in the forest, reading a scroll. You smile softly. If even half of these stories are true, this inn could write its own history book. A flash of color at the door draws your eye. A hooded figure steps in, cloak trailing behind and boots caked with dust. They pause just inside, scanning the room. You freeze, not because they look dangerous, but because you've seen that exact look before. The look of someone trying to decide whether this is a safe place to ask questions. You approach casually, offering a polite nod. Looking for a meal or a name? The figure chuckles, voice light, maybe a woman, and replies, "Both." You lead her to a corner table, away from the louder guests. She orders boiled eggs, bread, and the mildest ale available. You fetch it yourself, curiosity prickling at the back of your neck. When you return, she's removed the hood, sharp eyes, travel-worn hands, and a scroll peeking out from beneath her satchel. You don't ask. You've learned not to. Long journey, you offer instead. Long enough to forget why I started it, she says. You nod. That, you understand. Back in the kitchen, Marna is boiling something that smells suspiciously like turnips trying to impersonate onions. She gestures to a new pile of dishes and you jump to the task. Warm water, cracked bowls, chipped spoons, every piece with its own little tale of clumsy guests and long nights. Halfway through scrubbing, Anwin bursts in again, nearly slipping on the wet floor. You won't believe this, she pants. There's a peddler outside, claiming to sell a potion that makes chickens lay golden eggs. You blink. And? I gave him my last penny. You stare. For research, she adds. You shake your head and return to the dishes. Somewhere in the back of your mind, you wonder what golden omelets would taste like. Suddenly, a crash from the hallway. Not the ordinary kind. This one has the unmistakable ring of broken pottery and a small yelp. You dash out to find the fine hat merchant from earlier sitting in a puddle of what used to be the chamber pot he was trying to carry downstairs. He looks up at you, soggy and mortified. You pause just long enough to decide whether to laugh or help. You help. You fetch a mop, again, and some linen to cover the mess. The other guests do their best to pretend they didn't see anything, except for the bard, who immediately starts composing a song about the nobleman and the nasty splash. You'll be hearing that one for weeks. As you clean, the cloaked woman in the corner quietly finishes her meal and slips you a coin with a curious engraving. You look down to thank her, but she's already gone. Later, you'll check the coin again. No king's head, no known marking, just a star in a tree. You tuck it into your pouch. The floor is clean now. The guests are louder. The chicken has made it to the second floor. You mop once more, just in case. Then set the bucket aside and wipe your hands on your apron. It's only mid-morning, but you've already survived gossip, golden egg scams, and a very undignified accident. And the day is still young. You're halfway through drying your hands when the front door creaks open again. Not with the rush of wind or drama, but the sluggish groan of someone entering who's already tired of being somewhere. The smell hits first: sweat, road dust, and old leather. Then the sound, boots dragging and a grunt that suggests back pain and general disapproval of the universe. The merchant caravan's stragglers. Perhaps. No. This is different. You peek over your shoulder. It's a tinker, a wiry man with more pots, pans, and jingling metal trinkets tied to his person than is entirely necessary or physically plausible. He moves like a haunted wind chime. Every step sets off a chorus of clangs, dings, and inexplicable squeaks. You recognize him instantly. Tomwell. He's a legend of sorts, though not for any reasons he would brag about. Last time he visited the inn, 3 of his pans exploded spontaneously. One guest fell in love with him purely out of fascination, and Fergus, the same stablemaster still grumbling from earlier, was convinced for a week that Tomwell had cursed his boots to make him walk sideways. You meet him at the doorway. "Still alive, I see," you say. Tomwell grins. "Barely. I'm running from a goat. Long story." You nod. With Tomwell, every story is a long one. He shrugs off his bags and trinkets with a jangle and makes a beeline for the hearth. Half the room watches him. The other half pretends not to, but clearly is. You prepare a tankard of whatever ale is left that won't knock him flat. Marna appears behind you with a bowl of hot broth and a long sigh. "Don't let him touch the matches," she mutters, "or the candles, or the fireplace. Actually, just keep him away from open flame entirely." You deliver the meal and nod to the tinker. "Anything not broken today?" "Only my spirit," he replies cheerfully. As he eats, he begins his performance. Not officially, of course, but everything Tomwell does becomes a performance by accident or design. He tells a tale of a cheese wheel that rolled down a hill for 6 miles and gained sentience. He swears a cabbage once saved his life. He offers unsolicited advice about the healing properties of goose feathers soaked in plum wine. A boy from the merchant caravan sits cross-legged nearby, wide-eyed. The child's mother watches from a corner, shaking her head, but smiling anyway. "Historians still argue whether any of it's true," someone mutters behind you. You smile. That's exactly the kind of history this inn thrives on. While Tomwell distracts the guests, you slip back into the kitchen. The smell of roasted parsnips is giving way to something more urgent: singed herbs. Marna's slapping at the side of a pot with a wooden spoon like she's settling a score. "Out of time again," she says, eyes narrowed. You decide not to mention the mule from earlier. Instead, you stir the pot while she fetches more onions, possibly to punish the stew into better behavior. As you stir, you glance out the back window. There's movement in the alley by the stables. Nothing alarming, but odd enough to raise a brow. A shadow slipping quickly out of view. You make a mental note to check it later. Probably the chicken, possibly a ghost. At this point, you wouldn't be surprised if it's both. Back in the main hall, Tomwell is now trying to juggle 3 pewter cups and a spoon. One guest claps, another ducks. You rescue the spoon mid-air and earn a bow for your effort. Then the front door opens again, twice in 1 hour, which is frankly suspicious. And in walks someone you haven't seen in a while, Mistress Dorell, a traveling herbalist and minor menace. She brings with her the scent of dried flowers, chalk, and unspoken secrets. Her robes are layered, her hair tied in loops like woven vines, and her smile is always just slightly too knowing. She walks straight to the counter, sets down a small pouch, and says, "That's for the headache. The one you're pretending you don't have." You blink. "What headache?" She taps your temple lightly and grins. "Exactly." You accept the pouch with a nod and prepare her usual, warm cider with a clove. She prefers it quiet. Unlike Tomwell, Dorell doesn't perform. She absorbs, watches, makes you feel like she knows what you dreamed last Tuesday. She sits by the window and begins sorting dried roots from her pouch, muttering in a language that may or may not be entirely made up. Anwin returns, hair wilder than ever and eyes shining. I think the chicken laid an egg on room 4's windowsill. You don't ask why the chicken was on the windowsill. At this point, it seems impolite. As you go to investigate, you pass by the upstairs hallway. Room 4's door is open, and inside, a traveling scholar is standing on the bed, notebook in one hand, quill in the other, staring out the window as if it holds the secrets of the universe. You point to the windowsill. Sure enough, there's a small brown egg, slightly warm, and definitely misplaced. The scholar blinks at you, then scribbles something quickly. "It's a sign," he says. You nod. "From the chicken? Probably." He looks up, dead serious. "From history." You leave him to it. Downstairs, Tomwell has finally stopped talking, mostly because he's fallen asleep sitting up, a small spoon still in one hand like a scepter. Durrell glances over, makes a quiet noise of approval, and drops a pinch of herb into her cider. You mop another section of floor, just in case. The sun is climbing now, angling through the tall windows and golden shafts. It hits the dust in the air just right, like the inn itself is glowing, though you suspect it's just soot. You let yourself pause. For one fleeting moment, everything is calm. The guests are fed. The floor is passably clean. No chamber pots have exploded. You lean against the broom, content. Then you hear a shriek from the cellar. Of course. You freeze, mid-breath. The shriek wasn't one of alarm. It was the kind of startled, slightly offended yelp that suggested someone had stepped into something cold, squishy, or both. You set the broom aside, sigh deeply through your nose, and head toward the cellar stairs. The air grows cooler as you descend, and the scent shifts from roast onions and candle wax to something earthier, damp stone, mildew, and the faint must of ancient potatoes. Halfway down, you nearly collide with old Bertram, the part-time wine steward and full-time pessimist, clutching the railing with one hand and what appears to be a broken pickle jar in the other. "Someone moved the barrel again," he grumbles, eyes wild behind his smudged spectacles. "Nearly took my foot off trying to fetch the elderberry." You peer around him and spot the culprit, a heavy oak barrel, clearly shifted from its usual corner and now dripping syrupy goo. Next to it, a dark splatter and an abandoned shoe, Anwin's shoe. You call her name. A muffled "I'm fine" echoes from the far side of the cellar. Just fell into the preserves. Again. You circle the crates and find her crouched in a sticky puddle beside a shelf of unlabeled jars. Her apron is soaked, and her hair is slicked to one side with something that smells suspiciously like stewed plums. "You're having a day," you say. She wipes goo from her forehead. "I was trying to find the nice pickles. You know, the ones without mysterious floating objects." You offer a hand and help her up. The floor beneath her squelches unhappily. As you steady her, you glance around the dim cellar. It's packed tighter than a noble's corset. Rows of preserves, dusty bottles, a forgotten loot, and one particularly menacing wheel of cheese that's been here longer than most staff. The air hums with the quiet buzz of fruit flies and the vague sense that something back here probably curses people. You and Anwin shuffle back upstairs, her shoes making wet smacks on the stone steps. Bertram follows, still muttering about barrel placement conspiracies and the decline of civilization. Back in the kitchen, Marna takes one look at Anwin and points to the wash basin. "I'm not cleaning plum out of your sleeves again. Scrub or sleep outside." Anwin groans and obeys, grumbling something about being underappreciated in her prime. You return to the main hall just as Durrell finishes reassembling her pouch. She stands, gives you a look that somehow conveys both gratitude and warning, and disappears out the front door in a swirl of lavender scent. Tomwell, still snoozing upright, lets out a soft snore and nearly topples forward. You catch the spoon just before it clatters to the floor. He doesn't stir. The clock, well, not a clock exactly, more of a carved wooden rooster with a spring inside, squawks the midday hour with a single creak and a wheeze. You make a mental note to oil it, or retire it, possibly both. Time for lunch. You signal to Marna, who emerges from the kitchen armed with a ladle and the look of someone preparing for battle. together. You begin serving bowls of stew to the tables. It's a thick, peppery concoction with enough turnip to qualify as agriculture. Most guests eat without comment. A few ask what meat is in it. You don't answer. One man, to his credit, stops mid-bite, shrugs, and says, "Could be goat, could be hope." You smile and move on. The merchant with the too fine hat requests a spoon that isn't emotionally chipped. You hand him one with a less dramatic curve. Near the hearth, two children are arguing over which saint is responsible for cheese. You let them work that out on their own. Just as you finish setting down the last bowl, the door opens once more. This time, it's not a guest or a tinker or even a ghost. It's a man in a dull brown cloak, rain-speckled and quiet, with a scroll tucked under his arm and boots that don't creak. He nods once and makes his way to the back table without a word. You watch him for a moment. Something about his presence makes the room settle, not tense, just still. Even the buzzard, yes, it's back, perched outside on the windowsill, tilts its head, curious. You bring him stew and bread. He thanks you softly, eyes scanning the room, as if taking inventory of the walls. You wonder if he's a taxman, or worse, a map maker. You've learned to fear both. Back in the kitchen, Marna is wiping her brow. "Bread's nearly gone," she says. "Might need to bake more." You glance at the flour sack, almost empty. The eggs are all accounted for, except the one from room 4's windowsill. You decide not to mention that. "Use the last of the rye," you suggest. She snorts. "I'd sooner use sawdust." You shrug. Adds texture. She points a spoon at you threateningly, then laughs. It's a rare sound, like thunder on a sunny day. In the corner, Tomwell stirs from his nap. He yawns so wide you fear he'll swallow the spoon, then blinks at you. "Did I miss anything?" he asks. You look around. The merchant is still wearing his too fancy hat. Anwin is mostly clean, now peeling potatoes. The mysterious man is sipping broth like it's a sacred ritual. The buzzard has stolen someone's pastry and is making its escape across the windowsill. "No," you say. "Just the usual." Tomwell nods, satisfied. Then the fight breaks out. It starts with a thud, someone bumping a table, then a shout. Two men arguing over a turnip. Yes, an actual turnip. One swears it was his, reserved earlier with a mark in the skin. The other insists it was offered by the kitchen. The turnip itself, battered and bruised, sits between them like an unwilling prize. You try to intervene. "Gentlemen," you begin, "surely we can agree," but it's too late. Someone throws a mug. It hits the wall with a splat. Marna appears with her ladle raised like a general heading into battle. "Not in my dining room," she roars. The men freeze. Even the buzzard outside pauses, mid-pastry. You step between the two, scoop up the turnip, and bite it. It's not great. "There," you say, mouth full. "It's no one's now." Silence. Then applause. A scholar in the corner claps slowly. A bard starts composing a ballad on the spot. The two men mutter, grumble, and sit down again. You toss the rest of the turnip into the fireplace. It hisses once, then disappears into the coals. The inn breathes again. And you sit for a moment. Just one. You lean against the wall, eyes closed, listening to the murmur of laughter, spoons against bowls, the crackle of fire, just long enough to hear Fergus yell from the stable. "The goat is back!" You open your eyes. Of course it is. You don't run, because running implies urgency, and urgency implies surprise. At this point, nothing surprises you. You walk briskly to the stable with the posture of someone fully prepared to reason with a goat. The courtyard is sun-drenched now, its puddles dried into crusty stains. Guests meander with tankards and loaves in hand, and a few children have invented a game involving rocks, a spoon, and a lot of shouting. You sidestep a tumbling cabbage and reach the stable door just in time to hear Fergus curse in a language you're fairly certain doesn't exist. Inside, chaos reigns. The goat, short, shaggy, and possessed by the spirit of mild anarchy, has somehow climbed onto the storage shelf. How? No one knows. Why? No one dares ask. Its eyes glint with victory. One leg is planted squarely in a bucket of oats. Another is resting inside Fergus's hat. Its beard is tangled with a bit of saddle string, and it's chewing what may have once been a map. Fergus looks up at you. It's personal now. You sigh and grab a broom. Not to hit the goat, of course. Just to encourage it to descend, using soft sweeps and increasingly persuasive muttering. The goat eyes you. You eye the goat. There is a silent exchange of wills. Then, with a small sneeze, the goat hops down, drops a clump of something unmentionable onto the hay, and trots past you with regal indifference. Victory is hollow, you say. Fergus groans. My hat. That was my Sunday hat. It was, you reply, patting his shoulder. Back inside, the air feels warmer, thicker. The fire's been stoked, the windows are open, and there's a faint musical hum threading through the hall. Someone's tuning a lute. You recognize the off-key twang. The bard is back. You round the corner just as he begins a song titled The Ballad of the Bitter Turnip. You catch the first lines. O noble root of earthy might, dividing men by lunch and right. You duck into the kitchen before the second stanza can do further damage. Marna is elbow deep in dough. There's flour on her nose and fire in her eyes. That goat better not have touched the barley, she says without looking up. Just the oats, you reply. And possibly Fergus's dignity. She snorts and slaps the dough down harder than necessary. Small losses. You grab a tray of clean tankards and head to the back pantry for more cider. The cool darkness of the hallway is a welcome pause. No shouting, no animals, no poetry. As you pass the broom closet, a voice whispers, Psst! You jump, it's Anwin. She's crouched behind the door, clutching a wrapped bundle in her apron. I found something, she hisses, eyes gleaming. Look, you peer down. It's bread, slightly burnt, shaped vaguely like a pigeon, and stuffed with what looks like dried apples. It's from the secret drawer in the old flower chest, she says. No one's touched that drawer in years. Probably cursed. Definitely cursed, you nod. Smells great, though. She grins. Want half? You hesitate, then break off a corner. Warm, a little chewy. The apples are surprisingly fresh. You both eat in silence, crouched in the broom closet like medieval squirrels. Outside, the bard reaches his chorus. There's a crash, possibly a plate. You savor the bread anyway. Afterward, you step back into the hallway, brushing crumbs off your tunic, and nearly trip over the inn's cat. No one knows where the cat came from. It showed up 2 winters ago during a storm and never left. It doesn't have a name, though guests have suggested dozens. Midnight, Whisper, that one. You again? You just call it Cat. Cat blinks up at you, clearly judging your every life choice. Then it strolls off toward the hearth, as if it has a meeting scheduled. You return to the main room just in time to stop Tomwell from setting a napkin on fire. Not on purpose, he was simply trying to dry it on a candle. You blow out the flame, pat his shoulder, and guide him back to his seat. Fire's hot, you remind him. Still surprises me every time, he murmurs. You collect a few empty plates, refill a pitcher, and step outside for a breath of air. The courtyard is quieting now. The merchant caravan's oxen are dozing in the shade. A few guests lounge near the stone wall, drowsy from stew and storytelling. The sky above is the soft blue of early afternoon, with just a hint of golden haze. You close your eyes and breathe deeply. And that's when you hear it. The unmistakable clink of coin, followed by a sharp whisper. Just take it and don't say a word. You peek around the corner of the stables. 2 figures stand near the rain barrel. One is the man in the brown cloak, the quiet one from earlier. The other is someone you don't recognize, lean, hooded, hands twitchy. The hooded one pockets the coin and slips away. The brown-cloaked man watches him go, expression unreadable. You duck back before you're spotted, heart thudding a little faster. It could be nothing, could be a simple transaction, could be something you'll wish you hadn't seen. You return to the inn with your best neutral face. Marna eyes you. You look like someone just saw a ghost. You shrug. Just a man in a cloak doing suspiciously cloaky things? She grunts. Tell me later. We're out of carrots. You help prep the next round of food. Cold pies, buttered bread, a bowl of something green you don't ask too many questions about. The lull is deceptive. The guests are calm now, but you can feel the inn breathing between rushes, like a beast asleep but never fully at rest. Someone laughs too loudly. A plate drops. Tomwell sneezes into his elbow and declares it a miracle. You move through it all with quiet focus, cleaning here, pouring there, catching a falling jug with one hand before it hits the floor. The day stretches on, like dough being pulled across a floured board. And through it all, the brown-cloaked man says nothing, eats slowly, watches everything. By the time the afternoon sun begins to tilt toward gold, he rises, leaves a single coin on the table, and vanishes without a word. You pick up the coin. It's the same as before. No face, no number, just a star and a tree. You slip it into your pocket next to the first one. The broom is where you left it. You pick it up again, knowing the day isn't nearly over, and that in this inn, the quietest things are the ones you'll remember longest. You don't mention the coins. Not yet. Not to Marna, not to Fergus, not even to Anwin, who would love nothing more than to start a rumor involving secret societies, forest rituals, and a surprisingly fashionable goat. Instead, you slip back into your usual rhythm, sweep the hall, straighten stools, pretend not to notice that someone carved a mustache onto the portrait of Lord Halbert again. The inn has entered its sleepy middle hours, the time after lunch but before supper, when guests scatter like dropped flour. Some nap in corners, some slip outside to gossip or sharpen knives on stones, or argue about whether clouds can predict love. You take a moment to sit on the back steps, your broom resting against your knee. There's a breeze now, soft and grassy, carrying hints of hay and the faint iron scent of a forge down the road. You can hear hammering, steady and low, and behind it, bird song, loud and cheerful, as if the birds are showing off. And then the bell rings. Not the bell above the door. This is the iron handbell from the front gate. No one rings that unless they've got business. Real business. Important business. Or bad business. You rise, stretch your legs, and head to the front. Outside, the gate stands a boy, maybe 13, cheeks pink from sun and running, hair plastered to his forehead. His boots are too big, and his tunic looks like it's had better centuries. He holds up a sealed letter, trembling a little. Message, he gasps, from Lord Denhelm's manor, for the innkeeper. You take the letter with care. The seal is real, thick wax, the Denhelm stag, and slightly cracked, which means it was read once before. Interesting. You nod to the boy, hand him a coin, and point to the water barrel. Drink, sit, you've run far. He collapses like a dropped cloak, gulping water and sighing with such relief you almost feel guilty for asking what's inside. Almost. You bring the letter to Marna, who reads it without a word. Her eyes narrow. Her mouth sets in a firm line. Well, you ask. He's coming. You don't need to ask who. Lord Denhelm isn't cruel, exactly, but he's the sort of man who makes even good news sound like a warning. He owns most of the land east of the river, including the hill the inn technically leans against. He rarely visits in person. He'll be here before dusk, Marna says. Wants a room and supper. You nod, absorbing the weight of that. Then she adds, and privacy. Ah, that kind of visit. You spend the next hour preparing the east chamber, the only room with decent curtains and a door that doesn't creak. You dust, you sweep. You find and remove a frog that Anwin apparently rescued and forgot in a bucket under the bed. His name was Cedric, she says sadly, taking the frog out to the pond. He had opinions. Back inside, the quiet buzz of preparation takes hold. Tomwell offers to polish the cutlery. You decline. Fergus tries to wash the windows. You gently suggest he do anything else. Anwin starts making flower bundles to hang above the hearth for ambiance. You let her. By the time the sun begins its long descent, everything smells like thyme, lemon peel, and effort. You stand near the door when Lord Denhelm arrives. He doesn't knock. He doesn't need to. He simply appears, tall, silver-haired, draped in a riding cloak that hasn't seen dust. His boots gleam. His gloves are soft. His eyes scan the inn like a ledger. He nods once to Marna. "The room?" "This way," she replies. You follow them both with a tray of wine and bread, placing it gently on the bedside table. The Lord doesn't speak to you, but he glances at the tray, then at you, then back to the tray again, as if deciding whether you've passed some invisible test. Apparently, you have. He closes the door with a firm click. Back downstairs. The inn feels like it's holding its breath. Guests whisper. Even the buzzard, yes, back again, perched smugly on the windowsill, remains unusually still. You light candles. You refill mugs. You tell Anwin she's not allowed to accidentally slip a frog into the Lord's stew. By the time supper is served, the hall is quieter than usual. No singing, no chicken-related crises. Just the clink of forks and the rustle of conversation kept below the eyebrows. Lord Denhelm eats alone in his room. You bring him each course. He doesn't thank you, but he doesn't criticize, either, which, in noble terms, is high praise. On your last trip, as you set down a bowl of roasted root vegetables, he finally speaks. "This place," he says slowly, "used to be a watch post." You nod. "Before that," he continues, "a monastery, and before that," he trails off, staring at the fireplace. "Only stones remember?" he finishes. You stand quietly. Sometimes silence is the best kind of listening. After a moment, he waves you off. Downstairs, Tomwell has resumed singing, not loudly and not well, but with feeling. He's halfway through a ballad about an apple that caused a war when Lord Denhelm finally descends. He doesn't stay, doesn't speak to anyone else. Just walks to the door, pauses, and looks back once. "This inn," he says, more to himself than to you, "has good bones." Then he's gone, into the night, as swiftly and silently as he arrived. You lock the door behind him. Back in the main room, someone exhales loudly. "Did he tip?" Fergus asks. You open your hand, one coin, the same as the others, a star and a tree. Anwin leans in. "That's 3. You nod. She whispers, "Do you think it means something?" You look around the inn, at the candlelight, the sleeping tinker, the half-finished song, the broom still leaning in its corner, the cat on the rafters, watching everything. "I think everything means something," you reply. Then you pick up the broom and begin sweeping again. The stars are out now. You can see them through the high windows, those tall, wavy panes that catch firelight like secrets. They shimmer faintly above the rooftops, as if the sky itself is leaning in to listen. The inn, meanwhile, has shifted again, folding into its evening self. Gone is the chaos of stew and shouting. The floor is clean, the candles are low, and the conversations have dropped to gentle murmurs. One guest snores softly in the corner booth. Another absent-mindedly traces circles on the rim of his mug. Even the fire has settled into a rhythmic crackle, no longer demanding attention, just humming along in the background like a contented old man. You finish wiping the last of the tables, then take a seat on the bench near the hearth, letting the warmth soak through your boots. Your legs ache in a way that's almost satisfying. Today has been long, but no longer unusual. Here, strange is the default. Unusual is the new ordinary. Anwin sits beside you, holding a bowl of soup she definitely didn't ask Marna permission for. "You think he's coming back?" she asks, between slurps. You don't have to ask who she means. The cloaked man, the coin, the glance toward the wall where the old painting used to hang, back when there was still a painting there to hang. "I think," you say, "he never really left." She snorts. "You sound like the bard." He thinks he's a bard. Tomwell's convinced he's a reincarnated minstrel prince. Tomwell once tried to sing to a loaf of bread. You both laugh quietly. The kind of laugh that doesn't try too hard. just slips out like a yawn. Then the door creaks again. You don't even look this time. Doors open. That's what they do. But then, a hush ripples through the room. Not silence, not tension, just stillness. Like someone turned down the volume on the whole building. You glance up. The man in the brown cloak stands in the doorway once more. This time, his hood is down. His hair is gray at the temples, but his eyes are sharp. He surveys the room, not like a stranger, but like someone returning to a house that once belonged to him. He doesn't speak, just walks to the hearth and holds his hands out toward the fire. His boots are dusty, his gloves are off, and hanging from his belt is something new. A dagger with a hilt shaped like a tree. You rise, almost without meaning to, and step toward him. "Can I get you anything?" He doesn't answer at first. Then, in a voice like pages turning, he says, "Hot wine, if you still serve it." You nod and head to the kitchen. Marna's not there. Neither is Tomwell, though his shoes are inexplicably in the sink. You ladle some mulled wine into a mug, sprinkle a bit of clove and cinnamon on top, just enough, and return to the hearth. He accepts it with a quiet thanks, takes a sip, and closes his eyes like it's the first warmth he's felt in weeks. "I remember this fire," he says softly. "It used to be on the other side of the room." You pause. "That was before we rebuilt the chimney." He nods. "It smoked too much." You blink. Only the oldest locals remember that. He opens his eyes and looks at you. Really looks. "You weren't born yet, were you?" You shake your head. "Not quite." He sips again, then sets the mug on the mantel. "The stones remember, but people forget." You glance at the coin still in your apron pocket. "Not always." A pause. Then he says, "You found the coins?" 3 words, not a question. You nod. He reaches into his cloak and pulls out a 4th. Places it in your hand. "This one's different," he says. You turn it over. The same tree, the same star. But around the edge, a ring of letters, faded, unfamiliar, almost glowing. You feel a chill crawl gently up your spine, like someone whispering your name from behind the curtains. "What is this?" you ask. He doesn't answer. Instead, he picks up his mug and walks toward the far wall. Toward the old shield that hangs above the stairs, a relic no one talks about anymore. He studies it, the faded sigil, the bent rim, the quiet power of it, gathering dust in plain sight. "They built this in on top of something," he says. "Not just stone, memory." You step beside him. The shield gleams faintly in the candlelight, though no one's touched it in years. "Who are you?" you ask. He smiles. Someone who used to ask that same question. He reaches up and gently, almost reverently, removes the shield from the wall. Behind it, a hollow, a dark space in the paneling, and tucked inside, a scroll wrapped in leather. He doesn't touch it, just looks at it. "Still here," he murmurs. After all this time, Anwin appears behind you. She sees the open wall, her eyes wide with that familiar spark of curiosity turned mischief. "Is this part of the tour?" she whispers. You don't answer. You're too busy staring at the scroll, the dust in the hollow, the way the wall feels older than the rest of the building, as if this part never aged with the rest. The man sets the shield back in place, carefully, gently, and just like that, the moment passes. He turns to you. "Thank you," he says, "for keeping the bones of this place alive." You want to ask what it all means, about the coins, the scroll, the tree on the dagger hilt. But somehow, you know the answers aren't meant to be given all at once. Some things must unfold, like maps or stories. He finishes his wine, sets the mug on the hearth, and walks to the door. Pauses, then turns back, just for a moment. "Not all ghosts are dead," he says. Then he leaves. No drama, no farewell, just a quiet departure, as if he was never really there. You stand in the middle of the room, hands still warm from the coin, eyes still tracing the space behind the shield. Outside, the wind rustles the trees. Inside, The fire burns steady. And you know, without question, that this story isn't finished. Not by a long shot. The fire crackles softly in the hearth, but it doesn't feel quite the same anymore. You sit on the bench near the warmth, hand resting lightly in your apron pocket, thumb brushing over the fourth coin. It feels heavier than the others, not in weight, but in meaning. You trace the faded letters on its edge, still unfamiliar, still humming with quiet significance. The inn moves on around you. Tomwell mumbles in his sleep upstairs, probably dreaming of turnip songs and dancing shoes. Anwen hums to herself while replacing the spent candles, her voice soft and off-key, like a lullaby someone forgot halfway through. Fergus stumbles in from the stables, holding what looks like a duck in a confession. But you wave him off for later. You need a moment. The shield above the stairs looks undisturbed, perfectly ordinary, if a bit dusty. But you know better now. You felt the shift, that tiny current in the air when something hidden steps a little closer to being seen. You slip the coin out again and hold it to the firelight. The metal glints, but only just. You try reading the letters again, mouthing them silently. They don't form any words, you know, just curves and lines that feel older, like language before language. And for the first time all day, your heart beats a little louder. You tuck the coin away and rise, wiping your hands on your apron. The day isn't done, and you've still got things to check. Buckets to empty, lamps to trim, Tomwell's shoes to remove from the kitchen sink before someone mistakes them for roast. You head upstairs. The hallway is dim, lined with flickering sconces and creaky floorboards. You know each of them by sound now. Third board near room 5 groans like an old man. One outside the laundry cupboard squeaks like a mouse in leather boots. You pause at room 3, the one with the knight, or the not knight, the one who talked to his sword, Margaret. You raise your hand to knock. A voice inside says, "Come in." You hesitate, but the door opens on its own. Inside, the room is shadowed, lit by a single candle on the table. The man, still in his armor, though the breastplate is loosened, sits polishing a sword. He looks up, nods once. "Don't worry," he says. "She's quiet tonight." You eye the blade. It's sharp, clean, resting on a cloth like an honored guest. "Do you name all your weapons?" you ask carefully. "Only the ones that speak." You decide not to follow that up. Instead, your eyes land on something in the corner, an old book, its cover cracked and dark, a ribbon hanging from its spine. You've seen books before, but this one hums in the air. Not literally, but almost. "Yours?" you ask. He nods. "A journal, of sorts." "You're not really a knight." He smiles. "I've worn armor. I've swung swords. That doesn't make one a knight." You pause. "What does?" "Ask 10 people. Get 12 answers." You lean against the doorframe. "So why the inn? Why here?" He turns the blade in his hands, catching the firelight on its edge. "Because this place remembers. And I needed to be remembered, even just for a night." You let that sit between you for a moment. Then you ask, "Do you know what this is?" You pull the newest coin from your pocket and hold it out. He looks at it, still, silent. Then he nods. "I've seen it once. Long ago, a door token, meant to mark a place as protected or bound." "Bound to what?" He looks at the sword. "To memory." You thank him, close the door, and step back into the hallway. It feels narrower now, more full of thought than people. You move toward the end, past the rooms and toward the attic stairs. Another creaky climb, another small mystery. Up top, the attic is cold and dusty, filled with things no one has claimed in decades. Broken chairs, trunks of clothes, a sack of spoons labeled mostly bent. You light a lantern and step carefully through the mess, looking for, you're not sure what. Maybe nothing, maybe everything. You find a mirror. It leans against the wall, clouded with age, frame cracked in one corner. You stare into it, see yourself, of course, but also something else, something subtle. The shimmer of light that doesn't belong, a flicker, like someone brushing past behind you, just out of frame. You turn, no one's there. but the mirror continues to shimmer. You crouch and brush dust from the base. There, etched in the wood, faint but real, is the same tree. And the star. You exhale slowly. This place is more than wood and stone, you whisper. A voice from the stairwell startles you. Always has been. It's Anwen, holding a stack of folded linens and a fresh candle stub between her teeth. She squints at the mirror, then shrugs. I never liked that thing. Feels like it's watching. It probably is. She drops the linens onto a chest and stretches. So, mysterious coins, ghostly visitors, magical swords. Are we officially haunted now? Unofficially, you say. Still awaiting paperwork. She grins. I knew it. You help her fold the linens. It's a quiet task, the kind that grounds you in the present. And when you both head back down, lanterns lit, candles fresh, the inn feels softer somehow, like it exhaled too. Back in the main hall, the guests are drifting off. Tomwell has composed a new lullaby involving ducks, destiny, and a surprisingly well-rhymed reference to soup. Marna emerges from the kitchen, carrying a tray of late-night rolls and the general aura of someone prepared to feed half a kingdom or no one at all. You take one and sit near the hearth. The cat hops up beside you without asking and curls into a ball. And for the first time all evening, the coins are quiet in your pocket, waiting, but not alone. The fire burns low now, softening the walls with a golden flicker. Shadows stretch long across the floor, curling around the chair legs and the edges of boots kicked off in exhaustion. The cat has claimed your lap as a throne, and you haven't the will or the heart to move it. Most of the guests have gone quiet. A few snore openly, heads against tables, dreams rattling gently behind closed eyes. One of the merchant children is curled beneath a bench with a half-eaten crust clutched in one small fist. Anwen has fallen asleep in a heap of folded laundry, her braid hanging like a rope across her shoulder. Only Marna remains standing, cleaning the same cup she's already scrubbed twice. When you catch her eye, she shrugs. Can't sleep yet, she says. The night's not done until it's empty. You nod. That feels true. In this place, the night never ends cleanly. It stretches, it lingers, it remembers. You gently ease the cat onto the bench beside you and stand. Your knees pop like old floorboards. You stretch, yawn, and glance toward the stairs. Something tugs at you. Not fear, not urgency, just a feeling. You follow it. Up past the guest rooms, past the linen cupboard and the hallway portraits, back to the attic. You open the door slowly. The lantern you left earlier still burns, a stub of wax sitting in its saucer like a candle that gave too much and asked for nothing. The mirror waits. You walk toward it, breath held without meaning to. Your reflection meets you like a twin just barely lagging behind. The shimmer is still there, more visible now, almost pulsing, as if it knows you're ready to listen. You hold the fourth coin up to the glass. Nothing happens, then everything happens. The shimmer expands, slow and silent, like ink dropped in water. Light bends. The mirror no longer reflects, it reveals. Not another version of the room, but another place. Behind the glass is a hallway you've never seen before. Stone walls, torches, a floor too smooth for the inn's creaky charm, and at the far end, a door. You blink. The mirror returns to normal. You step back. Your heart pounds once, twice, then settles into a rhythm that feels focused. You could pretend it didn't happen. You could walk back downstairs, sit by the fire, let the cat reclaim your lap. But you know better now. This place is alive in ways no inn should be. And something inside it, beneath it, through it, is waking up. You return to your room and pull the small wooden box from beneath the bed. Inside are old things, scraps of parchment, a broken quill, a pressed flower you don't remember picking. You add the fourth coin to the collection, and then you pause. You reach into your apron and remove the first coin. Hold them side by side, same tree, same star. But where the new one has that ring of glowing letters, the first is beginning to show something too. Faint lines emerging around the rim, invisible until now, like something responding to proximity. You line all 4 coins on the table. First, plain. Second, a scratch along the edge. Third, a faint outline of roots beneath the tree. Fourth, full inscription. You touch each one, gently. They're connected, not just by metal or mark, but by intention. Someone left these, planted them like seeds, and somehow, this inn, your inn, grew around them. There's a knock at your door. You startle. It's late. Everyone should be asleep. You open it slowly. It's the scholar from room 4, the one who declared the chicken egg was a sign. His hair is wild, his eyes wide behind smeared glasses, and he's holding a stack of papers so tall it sways like an unsteady tower. "I think I've got it," he whispers. "I think I've figured out what they mean." You blink. "Well, what means?" He pushes the stack into your hands, pages flapping like startled birds. The coins, the markings, the order, they're a map. You open the top page, sketches, circles, trees, stars, arrows that loop like tangled string, a symbol in the bottom corner that matches what's etched on the mirror's frame. "Where did you get this?" He smiles sheepishly. "I've been seeing the coins for years, different ones, all over the region, never 4 in one place before, not until now." You glance at the pages again. Each coin is drawn in detail, every marking, every faint scratch, and beneath each one, a note: wayfinder, anchor, gate, key. "You don't know what these mean," you murmur. "I don't." He agrees, "but I feel them, like story pieces, waiting to be read." You stare at him. "You're sure?" He nods. "Absolutely not, but I've never been more hopeful." You laugh, not because it's funny, because it's real. You thank him, close the door, and lay the pages across the table. Outside your window, the wind picks up, brushing against the shutters with a gentle hand. The stars are still visible, bright and scattered, like coins spilled across the sky. You gather the 4 metal tokens and place them atop their matching sketches. They fit, not just physically, but with a sense of rightness you can't explain. You feel something shift beneath your feet. Just the creak of an old inn, or something deeper. Downstairs, Tomwell coughs in his sleep. Anwin mutters something about cabbage. Fergus lets out a sigh so long it could be mistaken for music. And above it all, the mirror waits. You sit on the edge of your bed, staring at the papers, the coins, the thread tying them all together. You wonder what the next coin will reveal. If there is a next coin, you wonder what lies beyond that mirror door. But mostly, you wonder why it's you. Why you were left to sweep the dust, pour the ale, watch the coins appear one by one, then again. Maybe that's why it had to be you, because you were the only one who stayed. Morning begins not with sunlight, but with sound. The muffled clang of a dropped pot, a rooster that crowed too early, then gave up halfway through. The wheeze of the floorboard outside your door. Always the third from the left. Familiar, all of it, but today, it carries a different weight. You sit up slowly, still half wrapped in yesterday. The sketches from the scholar are spread across the table where you left them, pages curled slightly at the corners. The coins rest in a neat line, each one exactly where it was last night. Nothing has moved, but everything feels changed. You get dressed and step into the hallway. Anwin is already awake, barefoot, hair lopsided, chasing a goose that has somehow made it upstairs. "Why is it always poultry with you?" you ask as she barrels past. "It followed me," she yells back. "I made the mistake of being friendly." You step aside, letting her and the goose tumble by like a very small storm. The inn rumbles beneath your feet as it wakes, stretching in creaks and yawns and the echo of spoons clattering in mugs. Downstairs, Tomwell is sitting on the hearth, plucking tunelessly at a lute with one broken string. He nods to you, bleary-eyed. "Dreamed of trees last night," he mutters. "Thousands of them, all in rows, all watching me." You pause. "Watching you?" He scratches his beard. They didn't have eyes, but somehow, they saw. You don't ask further. Some dreams are closer to memories. You check the fireplace, still warm. You check the coin in your apron pocket, still cold. Marna appears from the kitchen, carrying a tray of bread and cheese. "Eat," she says, pushing a slice into your hand. You're pale. You take a bite. It's hard at the edges, but familiar. Exactly the kind of bread you'd want before stepping through a mirror. "I think I need to show you something." You say, "Once you've chewed?" Marna raises an eyebrow. "In the attic," you add. Now, both eyebrows go up. She follows without protest, wiping her hands on her apron as she walks. At the attic door, you hesitate. The mirror is still there, waiting, tall and still and unremarkable, if you ignore the strange shimmer that swells when you step too close. Marna squints at it. "That old thing? Didn't we mean to take it down 5 years ago?" You nod. "But we didn't." You hold out the coin with the tree and the star. She doesn't touch it. Instead, she crosses her arms. "I don't know what this is," she says, "but I've been in this inn long enough to recognize when something's ready to wake up." You glance toward the mirror. The shimmer dances again, just beneath the surface, a ripple in still water. "Do you want to go through?" you ask. Marna snorts. "Absolutely not." You smile, a little. "Me neither." But you don't leave, and neither does she. She studies your face, then sighs, the way only someone older and deeply tired can sigh. There's always something with this place. Secret doors, coins, talking birds. "They don't talk," you say. "They listen," she replies. Worse. She turns to leave, pausing in the doorway. "Whatever this is, take Anwen. If something's going to explode, she's used to it." You almost laugh, almost. Later that morning, once the inn is mostly fed and slightly calmer, you find Anwen in the back garden, peeling carrots and humming to a bee. You tell her everything. The coins, the mirror, the scroll behind the shield, the strange man, the girl who called him uncle. She doesn't interrupt, just listens, eyes wide and alert, mouth half open in a way that suggests she's storing commentary for later. When you finish, she sets the carrots down and says, "Well, either we're about to uncover something ancient and magical, or we're both going to walk into a cupboard and hit our heads." You nod. Both are possible. You climb the attic stairs together, slower this time. Not out of fear, out of respect. Whatever lies beyond that glass has waited, and you won't rush it. You line up the coins on the floor in front of the mirror. Anwen crouches beside you. "So," she says, "what happens now?" You reach out and press the fourth coin against the glass. It doesn't push through, but it melts. Not literally, not into metal and steam. It just vanishes, slips forward, like ink into paper, leaving only the shimmer behind. Then the second coin slides inward, then the third. The first hesitates, and then, like a held breath released, it follows. The mirror glows, not bright, not loud, just enough to warm your face. You feel it, not just in your eyes, but in your ribs, your fingertips. A low hum, a quiet invitation. Beside you, Anwen whispers, "That is so much better than chickens." Then, before you can stop her, she steps forward and her hand goes through, not smashed, not hurt, just gone. She gasps and pulls it back. Her fingers are still there, still wiggling, but her eyes are huge now. "It's real," she breathes. You touch the glass. It ripples, the hum deepens, and slowly, slowly, the mirror shifts, not just in light, but in shape. The surface stretches, unfurling like a curtain parting. Beyond it, a room, stone walls, arched ceiling, a long table with 4 chairs. On the table, 4 open books. Anwen steps through first. You follow. The air is cooler, not cold, cool like a memory, familiar in a way you can't place. The books are blank, at first, then, as you approach, One begins to write itself. A name appears, yours. Then another, Anwin's. Then two more you don't recognize. You reach out and turn the page. Symbols, trees, stars. A sketch of the inn, as it was, older, larger, covered in vines. Beneath it, a line of text. Guardians awaken not by choice, but by need. You feel a chill rise in your chest. Not fear, something older. Something almost like responsibility. You and Anwin exchange a look. She's grinning now, nervous, but thrilled. You're still trying to decide what's stronger, your awe or your dread. From behind you, the mirror shimmers again. You turn, and someone else steps through. Not the cloaked man, not the girl, someone new, someone who holds the fifth coin, and says, "You weren't supposed to open it yet." The moment hangs, frozen mid-breath. The stranger stands just inside the mirror's frame, hands still outstretched from the passage. His coat is travel-worn, dark at the edges with dust or ash, though not torn. He carries no sword, no satchel, only the fifth coin, clutched tightly, as if it might vanish if he loosened his grip. You and Anwin don't move, neither does he. Finally, he steps forward and repeats, more gently this time. "You weren't supposed to open it yet." The room feels smaller now, like the walls are listening again, and they don't like what they're hearing. The books on the table go still, ink mid-sentence. The hum in the air quiets, not gone, but subdued, like it's waiting. Anwin, of course, speaks first. "Why not? We didn't break anything. We knocked. The coins opened it." The stranger's gaze flicks to her, and then back to you. "That's exactly why. The coins don't open it unless it's time, and it's not time." You take a step forward. "Who are you?" he sighs, rubbing the back of his neck. "My name's Kale. I was supposed to be the fifth." Anwin tilts her head. "You're late, Kale." "I know," he mutters, almost to himself. "I took a wrong road near Hollow Bridge. Ended up in a village where time runs backward every other Tuesday." Anwin blinks. "Is that real?" Kale shrugs. "It is now." You move closer to the table, to the book that wrote your name. Its pages are still again, but the ink is fresh. You can smell it, like cloves and parchment and something older, something green. "We didn't force anything," you say. "The coins came to us. We just followed the path." Kale walks to the table, sets down the fifth coin. "I believe you, but you've started something now, something we can't undo." You glance at the page again. The sketch of the inn is clearer now. There are figures in its windows, faint as ghosts. On the next page, a circle of trees, surrounding a stone with a carved spiral. "Is this a map?" Anwin whispers. "Not just a map," Kale says. "A record, a rehearsal." You raise an eyebrow. "For what?" He hesitates. Then he pulls a folded page from his coat. It's brittle with age and written in the same script as the coin. He lays it on the table beside the fifth book. "It's called the Archive," he says. "This place, the mirror room, it remembers potential, not just what was, but what might be. Every time a certain pattern is repeated, a place, a group, a moment, it records it. And sometimes..." He glances at the fifth coin. "Sometimes it tests us." You stare at the books. "So, this isn't a vault, it's a stage?" He nods. "A script with blank pages." Anwin steps beside you. "That sounds terrifying." "It's supposed to," Kale says. "Most people walk away. You don't, neither does she. Instead, you lean forward, fingers brushing the edge of your book. "So what happens now?" Kale looks at you like he's weighing something. Possibility, maybe, or faith. Then he says, "We begin..." He walks to the far wall, where a square of stone juts out from the smooth surface. There's a faint groove around it, a door without a handle. He places the fifth coin into a hollow socket at its center. Nothing happens for a breath. Then the stones shift. Dust falls in slow spirals. A low sound hums beneath your feet, and the wall opens. Behind it, a stairwell, descending in a tight, circular coil. The steps are stone. The light is faint, but it's there. Kale looks over his shoulder. This is the path. Once we enter, it records everything, not in pages, but in memory, place, thought. Anwin frowns. You're saying this place has feelings? No, he says. I'm saying this place is feelings. History doesn't live in facts. It lives in how we carry them. That's what this archive wants to know. You look at the others. Anwin, now fully alert and unusually quiet. Kale, steady but not certain. The fifth coin still glows faintly where it rests in the door. You take a breath and step forward, down the stairs. The air cools with each turn. The walls shift color, stone to mossy green, then to something smoother, darker. You begin to hear water, a trickling sound, like a spring beneath your steps. After a while, the stairs end. You step into a circular chamber. At its center, a pedestal with 5 grooves. Kale places the fifth coin. You place the others, one by one. The room lights, not from torches, but from the seams in the stone, glowing faintly, like veins carrying warm memory. Then, the floor hums. Images bloom along the walls, flickering like candlelight in fog. A girl on a rooftop, painting stars. A man in armor, kneeling in a ruined chapel. A child in a field, burying something that gleams. And there, you're in. But older, taller, covered in ivy. Its windows alight with something golden. This is what the archive remembers, Kale says. Every person who carried the coins before us, every choice they made. And what came of it? Anwin stares at the wall. What will come of it? Kale doesn't answer, because he doesn't know. And now you understand. This isn't just a record of past lives. It's an invitation, a test, a warning. The coins weren't just keys. They were mirrors. You look at your reflection in the wall, not your face exactly, but the shape of what you might become. And something inside you whispers, this is not the end. This is the rehearsal for something real. The archive is opened, and it's watching now. You don't speak for a while. No one does. You just stand there, surrounded by the glowing walls of the archive, trying to make sense of what you're seeing. It's like dreaming with your eyes open. Memory and possibility flicker beside each other like threads on a loom, some vibrant and full of motion, others fraying, unfinished. Anwin walks slowly around the room, fingertips brushing the light-traced walls. This is too big, she says, almost in awe. It feels like we shouldn't be here, like we're children rummaging through a room we're not supposed to see. Kale sits on the edge of the pedestal. Most people who made it this far said the same. You glance at him. How many made it? He doesn't answer, which is probably an answer in itself. You stare at one of the scenes flickering on the wall. It shows a version of the inn, not yours, but similar. Burning. Flames rise from the roof, and people spill out in the night, shadows illuminated by smoke and fear. Then, as if on cue, the image fades and is replaced by a peaceful vision, the inn surrounded by gardens, children laughing as they chase one another beneath swaying lanterns, hope and ruin, side by side. You move to the next image. It's a road winding through forest. At the fork, a cloaked figure pauses, unsure. One path leads into shadow, the other into golden light. Are these visions, you ask? Or warnings? Kale shrugs. Possibilities. The archive doesn't dictate. It remembers what could be. Your actions, our actions, choose the line it follows. Anwin points at a flickering doorway etched with a spiral. That's the back storeroom in our inn, isn't it? The one with the crooked shelves? You nod. Looks like it. She squints. But there's no door in that wall. The image pulses once. Then the wall behind her clicks. You all spin around. There's now an opening where, seconds ago, there was only smooth stone. Kale's face goes pale. It's responding to her. The archive is listening. Anwin raises her hands. I didn't mean to say anything. I just noticed. That's enough, he replies. This place doesn't work on intention. It works on presence, and yours matters. You stare into the newly revealed room. It's small, a circle of 5 chairs, each carved from different wood, each facing inward. At the center, a small basin, shallow and smooth, like it's waiting for something to be placed inside. Kale steps forward. This is a focus chamber. They appear when the archive recognizes a full cycle. A full what? Anwin asks. 5 coins, he says. 5 bearers. When all 5 arrive, the archive makes itself ready. Ready for what? He looks at you. For the question. You cross your arms. And what exactly are we supposed to ask? He gestures toward the basin. You don't choose the question. It chooses you. That's when the water appears. From nowhere. It rises in the basin, forming a still pool of glassy liquid. No ripples, no bubbles. Just a mirror, waiting to be looked into. You and Anwin exchange a glance. She says, "Let's flip a coin to see who goes first." You say, "We use them all." She smirks. "Then I guess it's you." You step forward, one breath, another, and then you look into the water. At first, you see only yourself, tired eyes, soot-stained collar, hair tousled from days of worry. But then the image begins to shift. You see the inn, you're in, but quiet, empty, chairs overturned, curtains drawn, dust heavy in the air like snow. You see the coin on the counter, alone. You see yourself, older, standing in the same room, still wearing the same apron, but no guests, no fire, no stories, just silence. Then the water darkens. Another image rises, Anwin and Tomwell and Marna, laughing together by the hearth. Children sleeping beneath a patchwork quilt in the loft. A traveler telling tales in exchange for soup. You blink, heart pounding. The visions aren't just memories. They're futures. One without you, one with the basin dims. Kale steps beside you. The archive shows you what it needs you to see. It's not prophecy, it's context. You swallow hard. So what's the question? Kale looks to the others. We all must answer it. Anwin approaches next, peeking into the water as if expecting it to bite. She snorts. Well, that's not subtle, you ask. What did you see? She straightens, eyes more serious than usual. Myself, alone, living in some dusty tower with books and cats. A lot of cats. And not the good kind of mysterious. Then she adds, but I also saw me, here, at the inn, covered in flour, arguing with a child about the proper way to stir porridge. She pauses. I looked happier in the second one. One by one, the remaining seats are filled. Each coin bearer steps forward. Each sees something only they can explain. And finally, Kale takes his turn. He looks into the basin for a long time. When he finally steps back, his voice is quiet. I saw the archive, empty, silent, forgotten, dust falling for centuries, the door sealed. He meets your eyes. I think we were the last chance. I think if we hadn't come, the memory would have ended. You feel the weight of that, the responsibility of it. The basin pulses once, then, without a sound, a word etches itself into the air above the water. What will you carry forward? The words shimmer, waiting. This is the question. The room doesn't ask who you are, or what you want, or even what you believe. It asks what you'll bring with you into the next chapter. Not a prophecy, not a rule, a choice. You stand with the others, shoulder to shoulder, 5 coins, 5 bearers, 1 archive, and you speak your answers aloud, one by one. I will carry forward the stories, Anwin says, even the ones that don't end well. I'll carry the warmth, says another, and the space for strangers to become family. Kale's voice is low. I'll carry the burden I once left behind. You place your hand over your heart. I'll carry the memory of the inn, not just the place, but what it gave us, what it asked of us. The room brightens, not with light, but with clarity. The walls pulse gently. The door behind you opens again, not just to the archive, but back to the inn. And suddenly, you understand. You've passed the test, not by solving a puzzle, not by defeating a monster, but by choosing what to preserve. And that's what the archive wanted all along, to know what mattered most. You step through the open door and return to the attic. But it's not quite the attic you left. The light is the same, soft, filtered through the smudged window, but the dust feels lighter now, like it's settled after being stirred. The mirror still stands against the wall, but its surface has dulled again to silver and shadow. No shimmer, no passage. The portal has closed behind you. Anwen breathes a soft, "whoa," and reaches out to touch the mirror's frame. Her fingertips rest there for a long moment, like she's checking that it's solid again. "It's done," she whispers. Kale, stepping in last, answers with a slow nod. "This part is..." You descend the stairs together in silence, each of you heavy with thoughts you haven't found words for yet. The inn below greets you like it always does, with creaks and clinks and the smell of something overcooked. But even that feels warmer now, more familiar, like being hugged by an old quilt that's been waiting for you to remember it. Marna is already in the kitchen, elbow deep in bread dough. She glances up as you appear, her face unreadable for a beat. Then she grunts, nods once, and says, "Hope whatever you found up there was worth missing lunch prep." You smile, unsure how to answer. Anwen darts forward. We opened a portal, solved a memory riddle, faced our cosmic reflection, and... "Peel the carrots," Marna interrupts. Anwen pouts. "You're not even a little curious?" Marna wipes flour from her hands. "I've lived long enough to know that if something wants to be known, it'll knock. If it doesn't, no amount of questions will open it." She pauses. "And when it does knock, it rarely brings something you're ready for." You think back to the mirror, to the basin, to the question floating in the air above that glowing water. What will you carry forward? Marna hands you a wooden spoon. "You can start by stirring this stew. That's something worth carrying." So you do. Because not everything meaningful is glowing or ancient or wrapped in riddles. Sometimes, it's just carrots, broth, and a quiet rhythm. Tomwell appears around noon, still barefoot, clutching a spoon like a scepter. "I had a dream about trees again," he announces. Marna doesn't look up. "Don't start a poem, not today." But Tomwell grins at you, and then at Kale. They were different this time. Less watching, more waiting. Kale nods, thoughtful. "That sounds about right." The girl, Tess, she tells you now, comes down the stairs not long after. She's changed into one of Anwen's spare tunics, which hangs a bit long but makes her look less like a wandering mystery and more like a member of the household. She sits near the hearth, silent but not withdrawn, warming her fingers over the flames. You join her with a mug of tea and 2 slices of bread, one plain, one spread with the last of the summer honey. "Thanks," she says, her voice still soft. "I didn't know where else to go." "You found the right place," you reply. She nods, staring into the fire. "I didn't understand what the coins meant. I still don't, really." "You don't have to," you say. "You just have to remember that they brought you here." Around midday, the merchant caravan begins packing up. Fergus loads barrels into the cart with grunts and the occasional complaint about his back. Children chase geese. Someone spills a jar of pickled onions. And the tinker somehow steps in, everyone. Kale helps, quietly, capably. He's not leaving yet, but you can see something has settled in him too. A weight lifted, or maybe just better understood, later, as the sun begins to slide lower in the sky. You return to the common room. Anwen is tying herbs in bundles to hang above the hearth. "For good smells," she insists. "Also protection, possibly both." You help her for a while, weaving lavender and thyme with sprigs of something vaguely minty. She hums under her breath, something old, tuneless, but steady. The inn is full, but it doesn't feel crowded. It feels held. You glance at the shield above the stairs. Still there, still just slightly crooked. The scroll behind it hasn't moved. But now you understand it's not just a relic. It's a reminder that stories don't have to be loud to matter, that meaning can hide in dust, and memory can live in wood. Even the cat, now sprawled across the second step like it owns the entire establishment, seems more at peace. In the evening, as candles are lit and soup is served, the five of you gather one more time. No ceremony, no fanfare, just a table near the fire and bowls of stew in front of you. Kale clears his throat. There are other places like this. Not many, but some. You nod. What do we do about them? We wait, he says, until the next coin shows up, until the next question asks to be answered. Tess stirs her soup. And if it never does, then we keep living, Anwin says. Running the inn, feeding the strays, telling the stories. Kale chuckles. I could get used to that. The fire crackles. Outside, a breeze picks up, rattling the shutters gently. You lean back, letting the moment settle around you. The archive still hums somewhere beneath the floorboards. You feel it, not demanding, just present, watching, perhaps, or maybe just remembering. Either way, the choice has been made. You'll carry forward the warmth, the story, the inn, and maybe, when the time comes again, you'll be ready. Not because you sought out greatness, but because you kept the fire going, because you stayed, because you listened, and that, in the end, is what the archive valued most. The next few days pass quietly, at least as quiet as things ever are in a creaky old inn full of travelers, cats, and Anwin's increasingly ambitious herbal experiments. There are no more coins, no more strangers at the gate with riddles in their eyes, no glowing mirrors, no echoes in the floorboards that sound like questions waiting for answers. Just bread, soup, and the simple repetition of work. You scrub tables, restock shelves, rehang the kitchen ladle Anwin keeps misplacing in the garden. At night, you light the fire and sit near the hearth, listening to the slow breathing of the inn as it settles into sleep. But even in the calm, something has shifted. You feel it when you reach for the mop, your hand steadier now, like it remembers more than muscle does. You feel it when you wipe down the windows and catch a glimpse of your own face. Tired, maybe, but more sure of its place in the glass. You aren't just working at the inn anymore. You are part of it. One morning, just as the sun starts to climb over the eastern ridge, Marna hands you a fresh loaf of bread, still warm from the oven. Take it, she says, pushing it into your arms before you've had a chance to put your apron on. And the jam, too. That's the last of the summer strawberries. Go sit. You blink. Sit where? She waves a hand. Out there, where the sun hits the steps. So you go. You sit with your legs stretched out on the worn stone stoop and tear off pieces of bread with your fingers. You don't even need a plate. The jam is tart and sweet and perfect in the way that things only are when they're meant to be enjoyed slowly. Kale joins you a few minutes later, 2 mugs of tea in hand. He sets one beside you, then lowers himself to the step with a groan. Muscles still remembering their muscles, he mutters. You nod. Same. You sip in companionable silence. The tea tastes faintly of cinnamon and something floral you can't name. Behind you, the inn hums softly. Marna's chopping something in the kitchen. Tomwell is singing a half-remembered lullaby to the cat. And Anwin is somewhere on the roof shouting at a bird who won't return her scarf. Kale turns his mug in his hands. You know, he says, I've carried those coins for years, always waiting for the 5th to show up, always thinking when the moment came, it would be big, loud, like a battle horn. He looks at you. But it was quiet. It was this bread, tea, dust on the window ledge. You smile, eyes still on the path that leads through the field and into the woods beyond. Maybe that's what it needed to be, so we'd hear it. He nods. Later that day, a new guest arrives, a scholar with a stack of books tied with string and a notebook already half full of sideways scribbles. He asks about the local folklore, and you point him toward Tomwell, warning him to discount anything involving invisible chickens or singing vegetables. 2 children come in after sunset, escorted by a tired aunt who clearly wasn't told she'd be supervising bedtime. Anwin offers them both warm milk and then reads them an improvised story about a frog who builds his own library out of spoons. The cat listens too, curled up like a comma on the edge of the hearth. The next evening, the tinker returns, this time with a wagon full of wind chimes, most of which are tuned to slightly different keys and all of which jingle just enough to irritate Fergus. But Tomwell loves them. So, you hang one outside the front door and pretend it doesn't sound like a haunted dinner bell. Cale lingers. He takes over minor repairs, fixes a loose hinge on the larder, oils the cellar door so it no longer moans like a ghost giving up. Each night, he pauses by the shield near the stairs. Doesn't touch it, doesn't open the hollow behind it. He just stands there a moment longer than anyone else, as though the wall is telling him something no one else can hear. On the fourth night, he finds you in the back garden, tending the little patch of herbs Anwin calls her potion pantry. He kneels beside the rosemary, brushing dirt from a broken stem. "I'll be leaving soon," he says. You nod. "You always were, weren't you?" He chuckles. "Probably, but I wanted to see it quiet first. I wanted to know it stayed that way." "It hasn't been quiet, not really." "No," he agrees, "but it's been still, and that's rarer." You rise, brush your hands clean, and offer him the jar of thyme you just picked. "Take this with you for your next inn, or forest, or time-looped village." He smiles and takes it. "You sure you won't need it?" You gesture at the sky. "The archive's asleep now, but we're not. That's enough." Cale leaves the next morning with no fanfare. Just a nod to Marna, a promise to write, which he won't, and one long look back at the front door before the path swallows him. That night, the inn is full of voices, feet, steam, laughter. Someone spills a tankard. Tomwell teaches 3 travelers a song no one remembers by morning. The cat steals an entire fish and hides it under the bench in the back room. You mop the floor slowly, pausing to hum along to the quiet tune drifting from Anwin's room upstairs. And when you pass the mirror in the attic later, just to check, it's still dull, still solid. But this time, you don't feel like something has ended. You feel like something has been kept. You touch the glass once, just once, then turn off the lamp, close the door behind you, and carry the stillness back down into the heart of the inn, where it belongs. You start marking time, not by days, but by arrivals. A traveler with a twisted ankle, asking only for a quiet place to rest and a pillow not stuffed with hay. A stonemason who carves figurines into the windowsills at night, leaving behind tiny foxes and owls no one asked for but everyone appreciates. A pair of sisters who argue about everything except tea and always sit at the same corner table beneath the ivy-stained window. The inn absorbs them all. You find that the more it holds, the more it gives back. The floorboards don't creak as much now. Or maybe you've just learned how to walk in time with their rhythm. The stairwell no longer sighs when you pass it, and the hearth stays warm a little longer after the last ember dies. It's as if the place, after years of holding its breath, is finally exhaling again. The mirror in the attic remains still. You dust it once a week, though it never really gathers dust. You touch it only occasionally, and never for too long. Its surface is cool, like river stone, and beneath it, you feel nothing waiting, just silence. You like the silence now. It's a companion, not an omen. One morning, Marna hands you a basket with a simple instruction. Walk. You don't argue, you don't ask where, you just go. Out through the garden gate, past the orchard with its lopsided pear trees, down the slope where the soil always feels a little warmer, as if the sun favors it. The wind is brisk, but not cruel. The air smells like moss and wood smoke. You find a log near the edge of the creek and sit. The basket contains bread, a boiled egg, 2 slices of cheese, and a folded scrap of paper with Anwin's unmistakable handwriting. If the trees talk to you, write it down. If they don't, that's fine. Just sit anyway. So you sit. Birdsong comes and goes. The water murmurs past, gossiping with stones. Somewhere nearby, something with hooves snorts once and trots off, unimpressed by your stillness. You eat slowly, thinking of nothing in particular. That's when you hear it. Not the trees, not the wind, just the quiet. And for the first time, it isn't asking anything of you. It isn't a pause before a test. It isn't an empty space needing to be filled. It's just quiet, enough to hold you. You smile, and you stay there a little longer than you need to, just because you can. When you return, Anwin is waiting near the kitchen with a jam-smudged grin. Did they talk? Only to insult me, you reply. They don't care for my posture. She hands you a broom. That's fair. You do lean too much on the left. The seasons begin to change, slowly, the way they always do here, without announcement, without grand theater, just the small signs. The bread takes longer to rise. The cat spends more time curled on the windowsill than prowling for mice. You swap the table linens from striped to plain. Not because anyone asked, but because it felt like the right thing to do. One evening, a letter arrives. No rider, no postmark, just a folded parchment tucked into the space beneath the front door. Marna finds it and hands it to you without a word. The seal is familiar. The tree and star. You unfold it with steady fingers. The archive sleeps again, but memory does not end. When the next story begins, you will know. Until then, hold the door open. Keep the soup warm. That's all we ever asked of you. See, you read it twice, then tuck it away in the ledger under room 11, where you've been keeping small things lately. Drawings left by children, pressed leaves from Tess, a copper button from someone's coat that no one claimed. You don't speak of the letter. You don't need to. You carry forward. The days return to their gentle rhythm. Tomwell builds a bench out of driftwood and declares it cursed. Fergus finds 3 lost boots in the stable loft and insists they're from future travelers. Anwin begins teaching Tess how to make jam without burning the fruit or herself, a skill neither of them have yet mastered. Each night, before you close the shutters, you walk through the common room and pause by the hearth. Not because you expect anything to happen, just because it's your place now, a point on the map where stories bend gently instead of breaking. You sweep, you stir, you listen, and sometimes, when the fire is just right and the shadows long enough to blur the edges of the room, you think you hear a whisper from the mirror above. Not words, just a shape of a thought, still here. You nod once, then return to the kitchen, because Anwin has likely started another fire trying to invent rosemary caramel, and someone has to be the one who knows where the water buckets are. It's not a grand life, but it's the kind that fits you, and in the quiet, you carry it forward, not because you were chosen, but because you chose this. The first snow arrives in silence, just after dusk. No fanfare, no warning gust, just a quiet shift in the air, like the world has taken a deeper breath and held it, waiting. You don't notice at first, not until Tomwell bursts in through the side door, arms full of firewood and beard full of flakes, shouting, "It's here! Winter's teeth!" Marna barely looks up from the stove. "We've had frost for 3 nights. Tomwell stamps his boots dramatically. "This is different. This is snow with intentions." You glance outside. Sure enough, the sky is soft and gray, and the flakes fall heavy and slow, like they're not in any hurry, like they know they'll be staying. You fetch the extra blankets from the loft, not because anyone asked, but because you know someone will. The inn grows quieter in winter. Guests linger longer, speak softer. Laughter still rises, but it comes from closer to the fire, as if people are afraid to waste it out in the cold. You light the lanterns early, their golden halos painting the windows with warm, blurred halos. The cat finds its favorite spot on the sill and stares out at the snow as if it remembers something you never knew. Anwin makes mulled cider. Too much clove, not enough apple, but no one complains. After dinner, you find yourself sitting by the hearth again, stirring a mug of tea you're not really drinking. The mirror is far above, tucked into the attic where no one speaks of it now. Not out of fear, but out of reverence. A sacred sort of silence. The kind you don't break unless you're ready to mean something. Tess sits across from you, legs curled beneath her, book in lap. "Do you think it ever starts over?" she asks, not looking up. "The archive. I mean, when one story ends, does another really begin? You nod slowly. I think it already has. She closes her book. Do you miss it? The mirror, the glow, the mystery? You consider that. Then shake your head. I think I missed the part where it needed us, but not the part where we didn't know how to answer. Tess smiles. We answered, though, didn't we? You return the smile. Yes, we did. The snow keeps falling. By morning, the inn is wrapped in white. Everything is muffled, even the usual complaints from the goat in the far pen, who clearly believes snow is a personal insult. Fergus builds a path to the stables using what he calls noble stomping, and what Marna calls just walking very loudly. Anwin strings pine cones above the entryway for luck, warding, or birds, whatever gets there first. Tomwell starts composing a winter ballad that rhymes chill with will 12 times and insists it's intentional. You repair a broken hinge on the pantry door, fix the crack in the mug with your favorite handle, mend the fraying hem of the curtain in room 7. The little things. That's what the inn is now. Not an epic, not a secret. A steady collection of small acts that hold people together. One afternoon, a woman arrives alone, travel-stained cloak, boots worn to the leather. She has the look of someone who doesn't ask for much, but always knows exactly what she needs. She doesn't speak for several hours, just eats, nods, and retreats to the hearth. Later, when most of the guests are napping or buried in blankets and books, she comes to you. You're in, she says. It feels like a story I almost remember. You don't say anything, just wait. I've been walking a long time, she continues, through places that didn't want to remember anything at all. You hand her a cup of cider. Then this is where you rest. She sips, then whispers, I thought I'd have to go through the mirror. You blink. You've heard of it? I've seen it, she says. Not here, somewhere else. Older, cracked, but it never opened. You study her face, the faint lines at her eyes, the way her hands twitch when she sets the mug down, like she's used to being ready for something. You don't need the mirror, you say quietly. You made it here. That's enough. She nods once and doesn't ask again. That night, the wind howls. Snow piles high against the doors. The walls groan a little, but the fire holds. You dream. You're in the mirror room again, though it's different now. Cleaner, simpler. The books are gone, the coins too, just 5 empty chairs around an unlit hearth. You walk to the center, expecting to hear a voice, a question, something profound, but all you hear is crackling fire, and then your own voice, quiet but clear. You stayed, that was always the answer. You wake before dawn. The sky is still dark, but a single line of gold cuts across the far edge of the hill. You rise, wrap yourself in the heavy wool cloak Marna insists you wear during storms, and step outside. The snow crunches underfoot. The cold bites, but it doesn't sting. It feels honest. You walk the length of the garden, past the skeletal herbs and the leaning fence, to the bench by the old tree, the one Cale sat on the day before he left. You brush off the snow and sit, and for a long time, you just breathe. No quests, no questions, just the wind and the inn and you. When you return, the hearth is already lit. Marna's stirring porridge, Anwin snoring under a quilt in the corner, and Tomwell's asleep with a spoon in his hand and a crumb on his chin. You hang your cloak, set your boots by the fire, and begin again, not because the archive told you to, but because this is what you carry forward, and always will. Winter settles in with the confidence of someone who knows they won't be asked to leave anytime soon. By the second week, the snow is knee-deep in places, and the path to the woodshed has been compacted into a winding white trench. The sky stays a dull gray most days, as though the sun is waiting out the season from behind a curtain. The inn glows against it all, soft golden windows, warm laughter, soup steam fogging the panes. You begin to notice the way people huddle closer now, not out of fear, but out of comfort. Strangers share benches without hesitation. A bard teaches a merchant's son how to play a simple tune on a whistle made of birch. Even the cat, who once tolerated humans only as furniture, now allows gentle scratches under the chin, though never too long. There is a rhythm to these days. You wake before the others, stoke the hearth, check the cellar stores, and start the bread. You've learned how long dough takes to rise when the air is dry, and when to wrap the loaves in towels if the chimney draws too fast. And you've stopped counting, not the days, not the guests, not the steps from kitchen to stable. Instead, you begin to notice something else entirely. The weight of the quiet. It's not heavy, not oppressive, but present. Like an old friend who doesn't need to speak to be known. You find yourself in the attic more often now. Not to check the mirror, though you do glance at it sometimes, but to sit by the window and watch the world grow still. From here, the rooftops look like sleeping beasts, rounded and soft with snow. Chimneys puff gently into the dusk, like sighs. One afternoon, while refolding linens in room 6, you find something tucked beneath the mattress, a coin. Not one of those coins, just a copper piece, worn and ordinary. But someone had tucked it under the bed as if offering something. Maybe a thanks, maybe a promise to return. You leave it there. Another evening, a woman sings by the fire. Her voice isn't strong, but it's sincere. The song is unfamiliar, sung in a dialect you can't place, but the feeling in it is unmistakable. Homecoming, loss, a sense that something broken once was whole. You sit with your hands wrapped around a mug, unmoving, until the last note fades. The guests don't applaud. They just sit a moment longer than usual before returning to their conversations. Later that night, you find a scrap of parchment on the mantel. Songs don't end. They just find new voices. You never see who left it. Outside, the snow starts falling again. By now, you can tell the difference between flurries and the kind of snow that settles. This one is the latter, thick, steady, deliberate. You step out to the porch with a broom under one arm and your scarf pulled high. The world is silent, but not still. The flakes drift in lazy spirals, catching the lamplight and turning the air into something magical, something suspended between real and imagined. You sweep the steps, even though you know they'll be covered again in minutes. It feels good to do something anyway. Behind you, the inn creaks, a soft, familiar sound, like a story turning its page. And that's when you realize the answer to the question that's been quietly floating under everything, the one you hadn't dared ask until now. What happens when nothing happens? This happens. People stay. Fires burn. Bread rises. Stories wait. Not in corners or crypts or glowing mirrors, but in conversations over stew and laughter behind doors that never quite latch. You go back inside, and something settles in your chest. A stillness. A knowing. Later. As guests drift off to bed and Anwin starts humming in the pantry again, off-key but cheerfully, you pick up the inn's old guest book. The spine cracks slightly as you open it. You flip past the early pages, names you recognize and many you don't. But every few pages, there's something more. A sketch of a feather, a recipe for cider ink, a quote written in looping upside-down script. No one ever knew if the stew was magic, but no one left hungry. You add your own between lines. This place remembers us, even when we forget ourselves. You close the book and place it gently back on the shelf. The wind groans outside, but the fire is steady. Someone upstairs is laughing in their sleep. The cat is curled in a basket that didn't exist yesterday. And you lean against the doorframe. You breathe in the scent of herbs and ash and bread. You carry forward, just like before, just like always. The snow continues to fall outside, soft and unhurried. Inside, the inn rests. The floors are quiet now, the last ember in the hearth still glowing faintly. You've drawn the curtains, latched the doors, and laid out the morning's bread to rise beneath a clean cloth. The cat sighs in its sleep. Somewhere above, the beams creak gently in their old, familiar way. Not from strain, but from memory. You move through the dim light. not to do anything, but to be here, in this moment, in this place that has folded itself around you. It's warm, not just from the fire, but from the lives carried within these walls, the whispered stories, the quiet kindnesses, the way the silence here isn't empty. It's full of everything that came before and everything still to come. You sit once more by the hearth and close your eyes. Outside, the wind shifts, not loudly, just enough to rustle the edge of the ivy that clings to the stones. It's the kind of night where even the world seems to hush itself, as if not to wake you. And now, you let go of the day, of the path behind, of the questions you once carried like heavy stones. Here, in the soft fold of winter and wood smoke, you are safe and you are home. Sleep well, traveler. End of script. Sweet dreams.